Yashoda-Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatihira Vanachari Yamunatihira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda-Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatihira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajak Acharya Ashottara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajak Acharya Ashottara Sata Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Prem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 3, titled The Lord's Pastimes Out of Vrindavan, text number 23. Daiva Adhineshu Kameshu Daiva Adhinaha Svayam. Is it split up there? Oh, sorry. There's like a dash on my here. Svayam Puman Kaha Vishrambheta Yogena Yogeshwaram Anuvrataha Daivadhineshu Kameshu Daivadhineshu Kameshu Daivadhina Svayam Puman Daivadhina Svayam Puman Ko Vishrambheta Yogena Ko Vishrambheta Yogena Yogeshvaramanuvratah Yogeshvaramanuvratah Daivadhineshu Kameshu Daivadhina Svayam Puman Ko Vishrambheta Yogena Yogeshvaramanuvratah Daivadhineshu Kameshu Daivadhina Svayam Puman Ko Vishrambheta Yogena Yogeshvaramanuvratah. Please chant.
Daivadhineshu Kameshu
Daivadhineshu Kameshu
Daivadhinam Svayam Puman
Daivadhina Svayam Puman
Ko Vishrambheta Yogina
Ko Vishrambheta Yogena
Yogeshwaram Anuvrataha
Yogeshvaramanuvratah
Daivadhineshu Kameshu
Daivadhineshu Kameshu
Daivadhina Swayam Puman
Daivadhina Svayam Puman
Ko Vishrambheta Yogena
Ko Vishrambheta Yogena
Yogeshwaram Anuvrataha
Yogeshvaramanuvratah
Daivadhineshu Kameshu
Kameshu Daivadina Swayam Puman Ko Vishrambeta Yogena Yogeshwara Manuvrata
Daivadhineshu kameshu Daivadhina swayam puman Ko vishrambeta yogena Yogeshwara manuvrataha
Daivadineshu Kameshu
Daivadhineshu kameshu
Daivadina Swayam Puman
Daivadhina swayam puman
Ko Vishrambeta Yogena
Ko vishrambeta yogena
Yogeshwara Manuvrataha
Yogeshwara manuvrataha. Anyone else? Lakshman, you want to go?
Daivadineshu kameshu
Daivadhineshu kameshu
Daivadina swayam puman
Daivadhina swayam puman
Ko vishrambeta yogena
Ko vishrambeta yogena
Yogeshwara manuvrataha
Yogeshwara manuvrataha. Mataji? Daivadhineshu kameshu Daivadhina swayam puman Ko vishrambeta yogena Yogeshwara manuvrataha. Daiva, supernatural. Adhineshu,
Adineshu
being controlled.
being controlled
Kameshu,
Kameshu
in sense enjoyment.
in sense enjoyment
Daiva,
Daiva
adhinaha,
Adinaha
controlled by supernatural force.
controlled by supernatural force
Swayam,
Swayam
himself.
himself
Puman,
Man
living entity.
living entity
Kaha,
Kaha
whoever.
whoever
Vishrambheta,
Vishrambeta
can have faith in.
can have faith in
Yogena,
Yogena
by devotional service.
by devotional service
Yogeshwaram,
Yogeshwaram
the Supreme Lord.
Supreme Lord
Anuvrataha,
Anuvrataha
serving.
serving
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Every living entity is controlled by a supernatural force, and thus his sense of enjoyment is also under the control of that supernatural force. No one, therefore, can put his faith in Lord Krishna's transcendental sense activities, but one who has become a devotee of the Lord by rendering devotional service. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, no one can understand the transcendental birth and activities of the Lord. The same fact is herein corroborated. No one but one who is enlightened by devotional service of the Lord can understand the difference between the Lord's activities and those of others who are controlled by the supernatural force. The sense enjoyment of animals, men, and demigods within the purview of the material universe is controlled by the supernatural force called the Prakriti, or Daivi Maya. No one is independent in obtaining sense enjoyment, and everyone in this material world is after sense enjoyment. Persons who are themselves under the control of supernatural power cannot believe that Lord Krishna is not under any control beyond himself in the matter of sense enjoyment. They cannot understand that his senses are transcendental. In the Brahma Samhita, the Lord's senses are described as omnipotent, i.e., with any sense, he can perform the activities of the other senses. One who has limited senses cannot believe that the Lord can eat by his transcendental power of hearing and can perform the act of sex life simply by seeing. The controlled living entity cannot even dream of such sense activities in his conditional life, but simply by the activities of bhakti yoga, he can understand that the Lord and his activities are always transcendental. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 18:55, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyas chasmai tattvataha. One cannot know even a fraction of the activities of the Lord if he is not a pure devotee of the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutaf Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Daiva Dhineshu Kameshu Daiva Dhina Svayam Puman Ko Vishram Bheta Yogena Yogeshwaram Anuvrataha. Every living entity is controlled by a supernatural force, and thus his sense enjoyment is also under the control of that supernatural force. No one therefore can put his faith in Lord Krishna's transcendental sense activities, but one who has become a devotee of the Lord by rendering devotional service. We are continuing reading this third chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam of the third canto, titled The Lord's Pastimes Out of Vrindavan. Specifically, we have recently been discussing the very intimate and conjugal pastimes of the Lord with his queens in Dwarka, which is a very high topic of understanding, and it is one that, as is being described here, requires a high level of devotion and spiritual understanding through devotional service in order to understand. And we can see here throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, it isn't just discussing Leela or discussing pastimes. There are some people who call themselves devotees who even blaspheme the works of Srila Prabhupada, saying that he puts too much philosophy in there. They're saying that they just want the Leela and the pastimes because that's the highest and that's the most relishable. But we can see here, even in this conversation between two great personalities, there is this emphasis here on the philosophical understanding. Because even though these pastimes, they're very elaborately described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand that the right understanding has to be there. Otherwise, one won't be able to properly see the transcendental sense activities of Krishna. Which is why Srila Prabhupada often said that one should not just skip to the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. One should first start from the first canto and then make their way down progressively through this level of understanding. This way, one can have the proper philosophical basis in which one can understand these intimate pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we can see here, with Uddhava and Maitreya, this element of philosophy is also discussed and introduced. So it isn't just that Srila Prabhupada emphasized the philosophy because he was some sort of scholar or something like this, but actually our acharyas and the teachers coming in our line, they emphasize this principle of philosophy when discussing these high subject matters, and any subject matter within the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because it's through this level of proper understanding that we can actually see the Lord's pastimes as they are. And what is specifically being emphasized here is this important philosophical concept that we are not the enjoyers in this material world, which this misconception and this understanding that we've all come up under is the main binding force for us in this material world. We think that by our own activities and our own understanding, by our own will, by our own strength and our own power, we will be able to become supreme. We will be able to somehow, some way, amass a certain level of strength, power, knowledge, wealth, any of these things in which we will be able to finally become the supreme controller. Because we see throughout our life, we have so many problems. From even when the child is in the womb, they experience so many different problems and so many different difficulties. Growing up, the child also experiences so many problems. They never get what they want. You see children, they cry all the time because they're in such a distressful situation. So throughout our whole life, we're experiencing so much distress. And it's because naturally the living entity is Sachit Ananda. It is eternal, it's full of knowledge and full of bliss. So this material world is therefore a very unnatural position. Why? Because everything in this material world, it's temporary. No matter how hard we try, no matter how hard science advances, and no matter how much we try by any sort of means, we will not be able to make anything eternal in this temporary world. Similarly, this world is full of ignorance. We can see that there's so many things we have very little or even no knowledge about. And even the seeming knowledge that we have, that knowledge itself is only temporary. We can see throughout the history of scientific understanding, what was once considered to be true, like a fact, like a scientific law, or a high level of scientific understanding, now if you try and preach that level of scientific theory in a certain group of scientific people, they will laugh in your face. Because they're like, oh yeah, you still believe that? Now we have further understanding, we made further advancement, now we know that this is the real thing. But we can see throughout understanding the history of this scientific understanding that in 100 years they'll have a brand new understanding, and the current understanding will be outdated. So what we consider knowledge in this material world, it's actually ignorance. Similarly, we want this eternal blissful life, but mostly what we experience is actually suffering. Even what we might perceive to be quote-unquote happiness, what it really is just the relief of this level of suffering. This material world, it's kind of the condition of a living entity in this material world. It's kind of described like you're being held under the water. This example is often given that when you're held up under the water, you're in such a distressful situation because you can't breathe. And when you can't breathe, you're in so much distress. And the happiness in this material world is compared to when you're about to run out of air, you finally get brought up out of the water and you're allowed to take a big breath, and then you just keep right back under the water again. So this is our condition in the material world. That small cessation of suffering that we experience and this big breath that we take to prepare ourselves for even more suffering is considered to be happiness. And the conditioned soul in this material world is constantly going about trying to find a way in a situation which they can be happy. And we can see people undergo so much endeavor in this material world. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimuratma kartaham iti manyate. That under the false pretense of this false ego that we have, we are doing so many activities and we are engaged in so much work because we're thinking that we are the doer. But actually, as is being described here, all of our activities are being orchestrated by this supernatural force. Srila Prabhupada says here in the purport that the sense enjoyment of all animals, men, and demigods within the purview of the material universe is controlled by the supernatural force called Prakriti, or Daivi Maya. No one is independent in obtaining sense enjoyment, and everyone in this material world is after sense enjoyment. Persons who are themselves under the control of the supernatural power cannot believe that Lord Krishna is not under any control beyond himself in the matter of sense enjoyment. So we can see everyone here is trying to enjoy their senses to the max, to the highest degree. And they're undergoing so much activities, so many different things to get this high level of sense gratification and this high level of sense enjoyment. I didn't really prepare so much for this class because I was out on the streets of Atlanta for book distribution. But I saw that I got a lot of practical experience while I was out there in relation to this verse, right? We were out there distributing books at this Dragon Con. It was me, Lakshman, and David, and then Rishi Kumar Prabhu and Mason joined us a little later. But you see, everyone out here, they're trying so much to get this high level of sense gratification, right? We talked to so many people out there, like every single day. We were talking to hundreds and hundreds of people. And this is like a weekend activity. People fly to this event and come from all over the country. I even met people that flew in from Portland, Oregon, which, if you don't know the geography of America, that's all the way on the other side of the country. I think the drive there takes like over 20 hours or something. It takes like 2 days just to drive there. And people came just for the weekend to get this high level of sense enjoyment and this high level of sense gratification. And they dress up in all these elaborate costumes. They spend so much money. The tickets themselves are so expensive and they cost so much money that when people get there and you offer them Prabhupada's books, they're like, no, like I spent all my money on this costume. Like it cost me like I had to work like an ass for like 4 months, and I spent $2,000 on this like super elaborate costume with like lights and like electric wiring, and like they have like things that like turn and spin and like crazy things. Like you're like, bro, some of these people are insane, definitely. And you see they go through all of this endeavor, and one thing is that this Dragon Con is in the middle of the summer. So I was actually talking with Vishnu Chitta Prabhu last night, and he was like, oh, like I hope it wasn't too hot out there, because we're going through like this heat wave and this kind of drought right now. And I was like, I mean, we were pretty much fine because, we're dressed in this kind of clothing, which is very, actually it's very utilitarian and very useful because it's not so thick. There's nice breeze that can flow through. But so many of these people, they were dressed in like thick layers of clothes, and they had all this like there was one guy that I saw, he was dressed in like this full suit of armor, like crazy, and like he was like on stilts, and like he had like layers upon layers upon layers, and it was hot out there. Like it was like 95, like the real feel must have been like 100, and this man was just beads of sweat just dripping down his face and his whole body. And I was like, bro, you must be suffering up there, man. He was like, yeah, dude, bro, I gotta get inside with some air conditioning. It's crazy out here. And he was suffering so much, but he came to this convention to enjoy, to get this high level of sense gratification. And he made this elaborate plan, and he designed this costume himself, and he made it himself. But really, it was just a prison in which he entrapped himself in which he was only suffering. And so many people out there, it wasn't just him. Like so many people, like they had all these crazy costumes, and they were telling us how uncomfortable it was, and like how like they couldn't wait to get home, and how hot it was, and how their costume, people were sweating like anything. But they come to this event to enjoy, and mostly what they do is just suffer the whole time. Similarly, when we were on Harinam, because we did book distribution for the first like 7.5 hours, and for the last half hour we would do some Harinam, and we would walk around through all of the different parts where people were gathered. And most people, they were just like standing in a big line in which they'd been in for like an hour, 2 hours. Or they were like sitting outside, smoking a cigarette, or just like sitting on a bench looking depressed. And then they see us coming through with the Harinam, and we're just like ecstatic, blissed out, chanting, dancing. And they're just like shocked because they're thinking that they made so much endeavor to come to this event to enjoy so much. They spent so much money. They traveled from all over the country. They thought they would be able to do so many things, and they're just standing there in line, or they're hot, or they're sweating, or they just like suffered the whole day. And then they see these people, these monks that with no seeming endeavor are some of the most blissful people that are out there at the whole event, that are out there at the whole convention. And on the flip side of this, about maybe an hour after we went out there yesterday, this guy came up to me, and I would just talk to him like, yeah, like, what's up, my man? Like, how's it going? And he was like, yeah, this day, it's like actually been like exceptional for me. And I was like, really? And then I was like, why is that? He was like, I don't know, just like for no reason, just today's been like really great. And I was like, bro, the best thing you can do to make this day not only a great day, but the best day is get these books. And I was like showing him like the Sapta. And I mean, he was like interested in the books to some degree, but he like didn't want to make that level of commitment, and he just wanted to get like the Bhakti stack. But I was like pushing him, like bro, like you'll be the first one this weekend at all of Dragon Con to get this set, which is true because the weekend had just started. It was Saturday. And he was like, I don't know, man. But after like maybe, I think I was speaking to him for like 15 minutes, I felt like Ram out there just like keep on pushing him, talking to him. He was like there was like just this change, and all of a sudden because he was holding like the Bhakti stack in his hand, but I was showing him like the Sapta. He just like put the Bhakti stack down. I was like, oh dang, I must have like fried him out. But then he was like, I'll take it. And then I gave him like the Sapta, and then he was like really happy, ecstatic, and he like walked away with a good experience, and I got his phone number, and hopefully he asked me questions about the books. But we can see that people were going under so much endeavor to try and get this high level of happiness and sense gratification. But this guy, just for no reason that he could point out, he said he was having one of the best days of his life. And this is actually described in the Bhagavad Gita also. Krishna says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya, shitoshna sukha dukkada, agamapahino nityas tamsti tikshasva bharata. That in this material world, happiness and distress, they actually come and go just like the winter and the summer seasons, right? You just go through life, and it isn't like you have to make a endeavor thinking like, oh, it's like December, it's winter, I want tomorrow to be summer. And then all of a sudden, tomorrow it's like super hot, like you can go to the beach and enjoy with your friends and enjoy with your homies. But this winter period, it lasts for a specific set number of time. Similarly, when it's the summer season, which comes soon after the winter season, you might feel hot and you might feel all this distress and all this experience, and you might think, oh, I wish it was winter again. So similarly, the conditioned soul with no effort of their own, they go through these different swings of happiness and distress. And I was getting so much practical experience with people out there that people were experiencing such a high level of happiness or such a high level of distress. What these people don't realize is that it'll come to them whether they go for this effort or not, because it's all dictated by their previous activities. It isn't that if I try so hard and I become the greatest person, then I'll become happy, successful, rich, famous. Like my spiritual master, he gives this example that if one is short, no matter how hard they try, they won't become an NBA basketball player. They can like go through all the training, they can train for 6 hours a day, they can have the best diet, they can have the best coach. But if they're like 4'8", they just ain't gonna cut it, because their previous activities didn't dictate for them to enjoy to that level that they might want to. But one who is naturally tall, they might even not be very good, but they make it into the NBA just because they're tall. Because this tall person, they're taller than everyone else, they can reach the basket easier. So people just with their previous conditioning and by their previous activities, they get this level of happiness, distress, and this level of experience without any effort of their own. And then, they're trying so hard, they're experiencing so much suffering and so much distress, and then you tell them about Krishna, and they start to hear about the pastimes of Krishna, and they hear about this person who's able to enjoy to like the maximum level, like we've just been hearing about and we've been reading about. And if they don't have the proper understanding, which most people don't, they become envious of this person and they try to bring him down to their level, which is what's being described here, that these people, they cannot understand that there's a person that is in complete control of everything. Because we experience so much in this material world that no matter how hard we try to be the controller, that we're just simply not. We try so hard to be in control of every single situation, but what we want to happen sometimes happens, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we try so hard, sometimes we don't try at all. Sometimes we can be cooking, we can try to make like the best prep, and like you put in all this effort and it comes out really bad. Sometimes you might make like a big mistake and people are like, bro, this is crazy, bro. This is the best sweet I ever had in my whole life. And you're like, dang, I thought I like screwed that up like anything, right? So we can see that we aren't the controller, and we have to get this understanding. And with this understanding, we'll actually be able to come to the level where we can become free from all this happiness and distress experienced in the material world. And we can able to get a higher taste. Like we tell so many people on the streets, like, bro, these books, they like help free yourself from stress and anxiety. And it's actually true, because so many people, they're stressed and they're anxious because they're trying to make so many plans and do so many things to make themselves happy. But if one actually has the proper understanding that I'm not the controller, and actually by dedicating myself to Krishna and rendering devotional service to him, automatically I'll be naturally happy. Right? We're engaging in so much activity to try and please the senses, but actually we're trying to be the controller of the senses, but actually we're just the servant of the senses. And by becoming the servant of Krishna, right, there's this verse. How does it start? This Rishikesha Rishikena Sevanam Nirmuktam Rishikesha Rishikena Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. Right, that by serving Rishikesha, the master of the senses, then naturally we become fulfilled, naturally we become happy. And we don't have to engage in so much effort to become happy, right? Even out on book distribution, even out on Sankirtan, we might seemingly be like trying so hard, like, I want to be happy, and I want to do huge, and I want to do the biggest out there. I want to do bigger than anybody. I want to be the happiest person out there. And we can try so hard to be artificially happy, and we might think, oh, if only I do this, then the books will go out, or maybe if I just act like this, then I'll be happy. But we can see if we're simply surrendered to Krishna, surrendered to the orders of our spiritual master, then naturally we feel happy while we're out there. And we can see this in so many aspects of devotional service, that if we're simply surrendered and we have the attitude of service, thinking that everything that I'm doing, it's only the mercy of Krishna, the mercy of the devotees, the mercy of my spiritual master, then generally things become very, very blissful, very ecstatic. Like, for this weekend, for example, I'm not a very great book distributor. I don't do huge at all. But I had so much fun out there. It was like a blast. Like I was out there with Lakshman and David. We were talking to so many people. So many people were taking the books. Lakshman had his biggest day of his whole life. Pretty much his first time going out for a full day on Sankirtan. And it was just so ecstatic out there. And then we did Harinam. It was just blissed out being able to be out there and perform devotional service. And it was just so blissful and so awesome. But we've also had those days, where we think that the books are going or that the books are not going out, and then we think, oh, I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna try this. And then we just end up not experiencing that level of bliss. So we just simply have to be surrendered to this process of Krishna consciousness, surrendered to devotional service. Then we'll be able to experience this high level of bliss and this high level of understanding. And it isn't just that as aspiring devotees that we want to experience this for ourselves, right? That's why we're out there on Sankirtan, why we're out there for Harinam, for book distribution, is because we also want to give this level of understanding to others. We also want everyone else to come out from this level of ignorance. And that's why, we go to the streets, we go to anywhere where there's people, we go to the airports, we go to so many different places to try and meet people and kind of shake them awake, wake them up from this suffering condition of life. Because without getting these books of Srila Prabhupada and without meeting devotees, nobody's going to come to this understanding. It isn't like in India where, so many people, they know about Krishna, they know about the process of devotional service. But pretty much everyone in this Western world, they're so under illusion that if I just become a great success, then my life will finally be happy. But we've been discussing in previous classes, I know in Vishnu Chaitanya Prabhu's class, we were talking about this idea, and in Chandan Acharya Prabhu's most recent video, he also talks about this, like there's that line, it's when you were in high school, they say university is going to be better. When you're in university, they say that college is going to be better. And then when you get a job, they say that that's going to be the best thing ever. And then they say, finally, when you retire, then you're actually going to be able to enjoy. But we can see that everyone, by engaging in these material activities and trying to be the doer, nobody's actually happy. But by going through this process that's delineated in the books of Srila Prabhupada, so many devotees are blissful, ecstatic, effulgent, jubilant. And we want other people to come up to this level of understanding. We want other people to come to Krishna consciousness. So we have to keep on going out there. We have to be enthusiastic. Prabhupada said that these books, they're sold by the enthusiasm of my disciples. So we just have to be an instrument for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and an instrument for the Spiritual Master. And then we will be able to give people this amazing level of understanding by which they'll be able to free themselves from this illusion of material existence. And they'll be able to read the books of Srila Prabhupada and finally come out of this ignorance and understand that one can actually attain the highest level of happiness and the highest level of sense enjoyment naturally simply by rendering this devotional service. So it's a short class today, so I'll end my class here. If there's any corrections, questions, or comments, I'll take those now. Mason, if you want to set up the microphone. Probably gotta turn the volume down a little bit on the you can anyway, yeah. Whatever. Technical difficulties. Any questions? Comments? Amayama Prabhu?
Some point also that's very significant. You told that the people, they ready to perform austerity, even for some nonsensical things. This means they have enthusiasm, they're ready to perform austerity, but they doing this wrong way. And really, if you go out with these books, you can change, because like that person you described, that he's waiting and this is armor, then he drive like maybe not directly maybe but some 10 hours, 12 hours, or 20 hours for that purpose. This is completely bogus, and people ready to do this. Maybe not all of them they can join the brahmacharya ashram, but because of that they have these farm communities, and they have give them also alternative, because they want to do something. Their life is boring, completely boring. See, you can see you're living their life in no enjoyment. You're like Prabhupada gave this example that this is a sponge, when they put the water and the beginning is like so much water is there, so much juicy, but after some time it is more less enjoyment, no enjoyment, and they try to enjoy, but this is no possible. If they can give them alternative and give another chance. And another point also you told is very interesting, that by enthusiasm you can distribute the books. And yesterday I also had this experience. One person took the books and he was very happy, and he thought, I like to read the books and like this. And after 1 hour I met him again, because the airport sometimes people is coming and they're waiting like 1 hour, 2 hours, if somebody can pick up them. And I thought, you can start to read now, you have time, you can start to. And he was completely in another mood, because maybe because of his waiting so much, and maybe because he tried to read this book because he thought, I'm Christian, I'm Christian, Because in the beginning, the people they very appreciated, this is a cool guy, I can take the books, it's very interesting. But sometimes they start to read, sometimes they can remember, actually I'm Christian, Yes, but books is there, and at least you can start to read this. This is an amazing process. They have a power, they have enthusiasm, they have a time, and they're ready to perform austerity. Only we should give them the proper way. otherwise they misused.
Yeah, you know, that's like a really good point, right? People there, like, just meeting some of these people, like, you just think, if people had this level of, like, devotion for Krishna, like, they would be, like, some of the best devotees out there, like, they, like, spend all day, like, watching these shows and reading these comics, and then they travel such a far distance just to attend this, like, convention, and they, like, dress up, and they do, like, so much, like, elaborate, like, service for their idols, and, like you were describing, they undergo so much austerity, so much tapasya, but in the end, it's all for nothing, right? And I mean, most of the time, the people that they idolize and everything like this, they're going through the same problems that they are, but they think, oh, if like only I was in this situation, and if I was this person in the show, then I'd be happy, then I'd be blissed out, right? But we can just see that if we give these people the proper engagement, and we give people the proper outlet for this propensity that they have, because it's there. I mean, so many people were at this convention. Like, we were doing Harinam on the streets, and like you like almost couldn't walk on the sidewalk. There were so many people, and like just like think, you know, like we like here, like, you know, millions are gonna join our farms. You know, like we had like a line like that going to the farm, where people could actually engage this propensity in something that's useful. Because what they're doing now, not only is it not bringing them happiness, but even if it is that happiness, it's only temporary. So we have to give them the proper outlet for their propensities, and what better way than giving them Prabhupada's books where they can get the proper understanding on every page and with every word. So yeah. You were gonna say something?
And for us, it's also a very good example. When you live in ashram and you have this experience, your lifestyle, your sadhana, and when you go outside, you will see another side of our life. Yeah. And you can see, I don't want to be like this, you know, because you have a difference. You have your life, and you have this alternative. And this every day when you go for book distribution, you can see the difference. You know, the people, they have so much endeavor, they earn this money, and they suffer. The more money you have, the more suffering you have. And it's completely opposite, you know. And if you want to be like some extraordinary person, like extravagant person, you can be brahmachari in Krishna consciousness. You can see. But they making these costumes, and there's some special armors, and this. They try to be like exclusive, like not other like another people. But if you like to real be like another people, you can be brahmachari in Krishna consciousness. This is the real. Only few, and if you all America, you know, how many population of US, you know, 250, maybe 300 million people, something like this. A lot, and only few brahmachari, you know, you can be a brahmachari in Krishna consciousness, you will be excellent.
Yeah, we were like out there distributing books, and like people were like, is like this like part of like your like guys' like outfit that like you like go in, you like give these people like these books, and we're like, no, like we're like actual monks. Like people like thought that we were just like dressed up in like a costume like everyone else. But yeah, that was a good point that you were making. And you know, in this material world, we can either serve Krishna or we can serve Maya. We have to serve something and be the servant of somebody, so better be the servant of Krishna.
Yes.
Kalki Prabhu, you had something?
Okay.
Just two things, but just to comment on the comments Prabhu was making. But what you were saying, but Srila Prabhupada sometimes would like cite like different like materialists that were like, you know, whatever, really fired up for like sense gratification. But he would mention like, he mentioned a couple, but there's like so many in history, but he specifically mentioned like Napoleon, how like, you know, when he was like, you know, doing his little conquering tour, that he wouldn't sleep, but if he did sleep, he would just sleep like on his horse, like sitting up, because he was like, you know, so fired up to reduce his sleeping to like whatever, to conquer lands. And then Prabhupada also mentioned like Gandhi, that he would like eat oranges, I think, and peanuts, and like reduce his eating or whatever. But then you see on the inverse, like the six Goswamis, they did like materially the same thing, but the whole like purpose was completely different. They were devoted to Krishna. Right. Anyways, I always find that like interesting, like at least like materialists that go through like so many like difficulties, not like difficulties, but you know, they live like such a austere life for sense gratification. And how much more serious we should be for Krishna conscious, because it's greater than sense gratification. But anyways, I had a question. So end of the class, you were mentioning about how like, you know, that whatever, I guess you could say the old lie, that, you know, whatever, go to school, get your degree, get a job, like, then you'll be happy. So my question is that idea, is that something that's just like within like a cultural thing? Or is that just like kind of like an aspect of Maya? Because there is like references to something like that in Shastra also, just like sense gratifications like a mirage in the desert or whatever. It's like, there's always like that illusion there. But there seems to be like emphasis on that, at least like in American society.
Yeah, I mean, because everybody's thinking that, I mean, since they think themselves to be the controller, they think that, I mean, I have to do something to make myself happy. So, you know, they see people who have things that they don't have, or that are maybe like a higher level of sense gratification than them, and they think, oh, if I do that, then I'll be happy like them, or like they think if only I had that, then I'll be happy. And that's kind of like that, chasing that mirage that you were talking about, like, oh, I'm so thirsty, but if only I got over there, then I'll be happy. And then when you get there and you're not happy, then you see like the next thing and you're like, oh, if only I was over there, then I'd finally be happy. But then you get there and you're just like, it's just the same suffering. You're just chewing the chewed. I mean, that's a really important point too, that, you know, even all this sense gratification that we're trying to enjoy and we're trying to have, we've also already had it all before, which is like crazy to think about, and we're still hankering after it, right? But yeah, it's you know, it blows my mind actually sometimes. And you like, I mean, at least previously when I was traveling with Chandan and Ali to all of like the colleges, like you would tell people this and they would just kind of be just like shocked. They would be like damn, like you're right. like all of the people that have the job I want, they're not happy, and everyone's pushing me to do something and telling me, oh, you'll be happy, but these people, they aren't happy. And then they're like their whole world gets like shattered for like a second, right? And yeah, it's this Maya that they're under because they want to be the doer, they want to be the controller. So they think I have to do something to make myself happy. And then they just keep on trying to do the next thing and do the next thing and do the next thing. At least that's my understanding. Yeah.
But just to kind of take that to the next level. So people may you may go to schools or colleges and like explain that to people, and it's like, yeah, I won't be happy, but like, you know, whatever, doing this, that, ABC, or whatever. But like, what would be like the solution to that? Because in life sometimes it's like we may be doing something, but we don't really want to, but it's like we need to, or we may be like pursuing like sense whatever. Someone's in college and they're pursuing that, and then they realize, yeah, that's not going to make me happy, and it's like, I don't want to do that. But then it's like, and you could tell them like be Krishna conscious, but at the same time, you know, it's like Arjuna's situation. I want to fight, but then it's like he kind of like has to fight.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to give people the proper understanding too. Like I often tell people out on books, I'm like, yeah, dude, like these like books, they like help you like detach yourself from the material, but they also help you attach yourself to the spiritual. So it's one thing to be able to become detached from the material understanding and have the proper understanding that, oh, the material world is suffering. But then you also have to have the understanding that, okay, but what should I do? Because I have to do something. So you have to give them that understanding too. And you know, so many people, they just say that they're like, yeah, I know it's suffering, but I'm just here for the ride. You know, but Guru Maharaj often gives that example where if you go on a train or you go on a plane and you're sitting next to someone and you're like, hey bro, like, where are you going, man? And they're like, I don't know. They're like, where'd you come from? They're like, I don't know. Like, then what are you doing here? They're like, I don't know, I'm just here for the ride. Right? And then you can just tell this person, all they're doing is just wasting time. So you have to give them the proper understanding in which they can disassociate themselves from the material things, but you also have to give them the thing to attach themselves to. You have to give them Krishna. You have to give them Krishna consciousness, which is what we try to do at these different college preaching programs and things like that. Does that answer your question? Anything else? Mataji's, any questions? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.